Everyone's a genius, but if you judge a fish by its ability to climb a tree, it will live its whole life believing it's stupid. Hi friend, welcome back to my channel. If you're new here, my name is Joey. I'm a full-time work from home, stay-at-home mom, an author, and the person who's here to encourage you to become the main character in your own life. And apparently so is my cat, because are you new here? If you're not new here, then you know he joins me in every single video. But hi, how are you doing? Today, I wanted to talk about finding confidence and kind of discuss how that seems to be a bit of an ongoing journey for me and how it can be an ongoing journey for you as well. So if you're clicking on this video, I'm going to assume that you are in a place where confidence seems a little bit far off and you're not entirely sure how, when you're looking at other people, how they can show up in a way that seems so confident, and you're wondering if they have something that you don't have, or they know a secret that you don't know, or if they were raised differently or have had a different experience in life, which is very possible to all of those things. But it doesn't really matter where you came from, who you are, what you've experienced, where you currently are in your life. You can start to establish confidence in yourself, and it's actually easier than I think you think it is. And so I wanted to share with you a little bit about how I went from being the most insecure person who was meek and had a lot of self-doubt and very little self-respect to somebody I would say can confidently stand in a room now and not be riddled with those like plaguing thoughts of like, I'm not good enough, I don't deserve to be here, why are these people talking to me? To have a little bit of that courage to do some of the bigger things that are required of me in my career now, that 10 years ago, not a chance I would have been able to do it. In fact, there's a lot of things that I'm doing now that I had the chance to do 10 years ago. And honestly, I just, at that time in my life, was not the person that could have done those things. And while I'm not sure I'm that person now, I have started to practice being confident in a way that allows me to take advantage of the opportunities in front of me and stop robbing myself of the life that I want to live just because I'm riddled with insecurity, fear, and doubt. So let's talk about how you can find your confidence and start to like yourself a little bit and start standing in rooms that you deserve to be in and start to enjoy your own company without constantly having thoughts in your mind about how you're not good enough. Okay, the first thing that I did that helped me to start feeling a little bit more confident or discovering my confidence is I had to start doing things that built trust within myself. And I'm not sure kind of where you are on this journey, but for me, where I was is I was really, I don't even know the right word to use necessarily, but I did not have self-respect. And what I mean by that is I would look at other people and assume that they were worthy of respect that I was not worthy of. And I'm not really sure where that thought came from, but it ran deep. Like it ran really deep. And these are people sometimes that I wouldn't even know, I would know nothing about. I just inherently believed that they deserved more than I did for whatever reason. And this was kind of unintentional that this started, like that I started to do things to build trust within myself. But doing that practice, I think started to build the foundation of what you need to be able to stand firm on who you are and start to respect yourself a little bit. And so for me, this journey really started when I started my company in 2016. It was something that I just wanted to do, but I had absolutely no qualifications to do it. Aside from the fact that I had been running a successful blog for, I don't know, 7 years at that time. Aside from that, like I didn't have an MBA, I didn't have any experience freelancing, I didn't have any real knowledge of like how to set up a business entity or how to start marketing or start getting clients. I didn't have any of that experience. I just knew I wanted to do it. And I had this like tiny little inkling that I could do it. I'm not sure where that little spark came from, but it was in there. It was surrounded by fear and doubt, but it was in there. And so before I did anything drastic, I started to do little things that reconfirmed that I was capable and worthy of my own respect. And that was, I think, the very, very first thing that any of us have to do on a journey like that is before we can start to expect other people to respect us, we have to first start identifying ways to respect ourselves. And so if that's not something you've ever thought of before, which is very possible because I don't know that we are ever really taught to sit and look and self-reflect and think, what are the qualities about myself that I actually respect? What are the things that I do that I would admire other people if they did them? And so for me, that kind of helped me to identify like a core list of qualities and values that if it's something that I look to in somebody else and think, gosh, that's really admirable, I really love that they do that, I started to test drive those qualities in myself. And for me, that was discipline, motivation, but specifically discipline. Like there was something really rooted deep in that quality for me, that to like be self-motivated and have the ability to set a goal for yourself and pursue it and continue to pursue it even if everything else around you was trying to stop you from making that happen, within reason, of course. But I started to test these waters in extremely small ways. And I'm talking like the very first thing that I think I started to do was honor my alarm that was going off. The other thing that I started to kind of test drive was, because I had a part-time job that started later in the day, I wanted to start practicing being somebody that was active every single day. And so initially I was like, I'm gonna run this number of miles a month. However that fits into my schedule, I'm going to honor this goal that I've made within myself. And before I knew it, without even meaning to, even on mornings that I would wake up without the intention to go running, by 7 o'clock, I had established like this rhythm in my day that by 7 o'clock, I found myself lacing up my shoes and heading out the door just because that's what felt normal to do at that time. Because I had established a rhythm that allowed me to start testing the waters of respecting myself. And because of that, that really set the foundation to do all of the other pieces that I think are necessary to start building confidence, because I realized that I was somebody worthy of keeping my promise. And when you keep your promises to yourself, you start to realize how powerful and empowering that feels. And it actually turns into and translates into somebody who respects themselves. And because you respect yourself, you then start to put off an energy that demands other people start to respect you in a really gentle way. I wish I knew how to describe it, but I hope you understand what I'm saying in this, that like until you respect yourself, you're never going to be able to demand the respect of the people standing around you. And so it's really, really important that you start to identify tiny little ways that you can start to establish that respect within yourself. So really take some time to journal or do whatever you need to do. Talk with a friend, talk with somebody you admire maybe, and identify a list of qualities or values that you admire, and then start to identify ways that you can start to explore what that looks like to be a type of person that has adopted those qualities within yourself. Okay, the next thing that I had to do on this journey to find confidence was I had to start giving myself the chance to try. And again, I was completely riddled with self-doubt and insecurity. There was not a person standing in a room that was riddled with more doubt than me. I just inherently believed that I was less than, that I didn't deserve anything. I honestly, and this is really, really hard for me to admit, and it's still something that like when I tap back into that version of myself makes me feel a little bit sick. But I really believed I was dumb. I really, truly believed I was stupid. I don't like that word. I don't let my 2-year-old say that word, but I believed it. I wholeheartedly believed I was stupid. I loved school, but I was not naturally a good student. I did not excel in any particular class, aside from writing. And I never really found myself in any type of environment that I was excelling in or that kind of fueled a little bit of confidence within myself. And I do believe, we'll dig into this in therapy, I'm sure, at some point in my life, but like, I also didn't come from the type of household that like offered a lot of encouragement and support and resources. I didn't have help with homework. I didn't have like, you know, siblings sitting around a kitchen table and like working on projects together. I was very much like a lone wolf kind of doing things on my own and didn't really have a lot to tap into as far as opportunities to test myself and challenge myself and find there's something that really, the words that I'm trying to say, hold on. Confidence comes from doing something that feels hard, right? Confidence comes comes from doing something that you believe is difficult and pursuing forward and continuing with perseverance, trying and trying and trying again until you finally break through the wall and find a little bit of success. And that's where you learn to like trust yourself, right? It's where you learn to identify that like you can do hard things. I really didn't experience that in any capacity until I started to pursue owning my own business in 2016, because it was something that I was doing independently. It was something I was doing on my own. I did eventually bring a friend in on it with me, but for the most part, we were kind of navigating this without a lot of experience. And it was the first time that I realized that if I put my mind to something, I was fully capable of learning what I needed to learn to make it happen. And then I really identified that like, oh no, there's actually nothing I can't do, because the internet is such a resource of information. And if it's something that I'm committed to learning, I will learn it, I will figure it out, and I will make it happen. That was really when like my confidence started to go into overdrive, because I really identified the avenues that were important to me. If it's a road I want to be on, I'm gonna learn to navigate it. But what's gonna happen if I'm on a path that like doesn't feel right? I'm gonna be in low gear. I'm going to have my hazard lights on. I'm gonna be glancing around, looking to see what the other cars are doing, because I'm not really sure what I'm doing here. But when it was a road I wanted to be on, dude, I was cruising. I was just knocking down obstacle after obstacle because it was so important to me to make this happen. And that was really when I started to identify like, oh no, I'm not dumb at all. I'm actually kind of smart. I just had to find the things that encouraged me and motivated me and incentivized me to learn. And when it was something that was important to me, there was no stopping me. I was not going to take no for an answer. If it was something I wanted to do, for instance, like starting my first website that was like sales driven, right? I needed to be able to take payments and invoice sales and do all those things. I didn't know a thing about any of that. But you know who does? Google. Google knows everything. And I learned that if I research hard enough, put the pieces together, I can put the puzzle together myself. And that felt really empowering. This is when I sort of adopted the quote from Albert Einstein: everyone's a genius, but if you judge a fish by its ability to climb a tree, it will live its whole life believing it's stupid. That was my life. So give yourself the opportunity to start trying and identify what those things are that are important enough to you to try and start persevering forward. Because I promise you, if you give yourself the chance to try something that you actually want to do and that you're committed to figuring out, the confidence comes from doing. You will get yourself just about as far as you need to go, realize that you're at a roadblock, don't know how to navigate forward, you start researching the information, you figure out one tiny little step forward, you take that step, and then the next thing you know, you take another step and another and another, and you're just running in a direction that actually feels really good to you. The confidence comes from that. And I can't stress that enough. Give yourself the opportunity to try, and try things that are actually important to you. That's the key. If you're trying things that you feel like other people think you should be doing, or you're trying things because it's what your job wants you to do, or what your parents have instilled in you is important, no. Strip it all down, identify the pieces that are important to you, and start trying. And I'm talking, this doesn't have to be a career. It could be a hobby, it could be exercise, it could be anything, but give yourself the opportunity to try. Okay, another thing I had to do to really start to cement the confidence and self-respect and drop the insecurities was, for a little while, I had to eliminate the noise. So once I started down this path and realizing like, hey, whoa, I'm kind of figuring this out. I'm identifying the parts of myself that are in my mind, because let me make something very clear. You are inherently worthy of respect. You are inherently worthy of respect. You are inherently worthy of taking up space. You don't need anyone's validation for that. It is inherent to you. You are a gift. You are here on purpose. There is nothing you can't do. But I do believe that in order to put on that cloak, you have to believe it about yourself first. And so I understand, because it happened to me, that you have to sort of experience things that help you identify that piece of yourself. And so once I started to kind of walk down this path and I was like, oh wait, I respect myself a little bit. I also, in turn, started to follow a lot of people online that were doing really big things, bigger things than I was doing. And it could go one of two ways. It could be really inspiring or really discouraging. And for me, it was discouraging. And I think it's because I was looking at what other people were doing and realizing they're already doing what I want to do. They're doing it better than I could ever do it. So why even bother trying? And that's a really dangerous place to be in, because I now believe there's room for everyone. I believe that it doesn't matter how many of us are sharing the same message. Not everyone is for everyone. And so I might be saying the same thing to you that somebody else has already said, but they're not your cup of tea and I am. Or maybe it's a message you need to hear and I'm saying it, but I'm not your cup of tea. But somebody else, thank God, is. And so you're still receiving that message from an avenue that feels comfortable for you. I now believe that. I did not at the time. And so I remember being in a Bible study at the time with like other married couples, and I confessed that I'm like, I feel like I need like a true Sabbath. My brain felt so full and so empty at the same time. I didn't know how the two things could be true at once, but it was happening. And I decided that once a week on Sundays, I was not gonna log into any social media. And the very first time that I did it, it felt so good that when I woke up on the next morning, I was like, you know what? I wonder if I can keep this going. Then the next day, then the next day, then the next day. And before I knew it, I had unintentionally taken an entire month off of social media, and oh my gosh, you guys. I wish I could explain to you how revitalizing it was, but also that whole month was so full of self-discovery. It's unreal, because I was filling my time with things that were actually allowing me to get to know myself, get to like myself, get to understand myself, rather than constantly filling my time with looking at other people. And when I took the time to spend time with myself, I really started to identify what thoughts are mine and what thoughts are things that I've adopted because I've seen them on social media 100 times. What opinions are mine? Do I have this opinion because I have the opinion, or do I have the opinion because I saw someone else have the opinion and it was just easier to adopt it? What do I like? What do I dislike? What do I want to spend my time doing? Our brains are wired to just latch on to the easiest version of something. And because content is so accessible right now, because we are able to so easily access the inside thoughts of every single person around us, our brains just latch on to ideas and we believe them to be true, or we adopt them to be true for ourselves, even though we've never really given it any real thought. I cannot encourage you enough to take some time in silence, take time away from social media, really identify who you are, what you believe, what you think. You will start to come into yourself in a way that you could never dream possible. Okay, and then the last thing that I did that I feel like really solidified my growth into becoming a confident person is I really started to take notice and pay attention to and edit the people I was spending my time with. And I mean that in real life, and I mean that online. And so I really pared down my circle of people. Brene Brown has this theory where you create a 1 inch by 1 inch square piece of paper and you write down all of the people whose opinions matter to you, okay? And when an opinion comes your way of a person who is not on your 1 inch square piece of paper, or advice comes to you from someone whose name is not on that 1 inch square piece of paper, it helps you to identify if you need to take it to heart or not. And that really changed things for me. I pared down who I spent my time with. I also really edited and curated my social media feed. You can curate your feed. This is also when Instagram at that time, their stories had just changed to, you used to be able to like click on a person's story, watch only their story, and then it would like drop out of that part of the app. And then they launched this thing where like, if you click on one person's story, it's automatically going to end that story and then start the next person's story, and so on and so forth. And I started to feel ambushed by content that I was not intentionally looking to consume. And a lot of times it would be from creators that really just sparked something negative in me. And it wasn't their fault. It was certainly something within me, but I was constantly doing that to myself. And I learned that if you mute people's Instagram stories, they still show up in your top bar. They're just grayed out, so you still have access to them. But if you click on them, if you click on, say you click on my profile, right? You see my story, and then when my story story ends, it drops you out of that part of the app. And then you can navigate through your bar and decide, okay, now I want to look at this person's story. That helped tremendously. So I know that we all follow people because it feels like the right thing to do, or we're mutuals or whatever, but maybe consuming that person's content doesn't make you feel very good about yourself for whatever reason. Mute them. You can follow them if you feel like you have to. I also believe that you could just not follow them, but I understand that that's not always possible. Mute them. Curate your social media feed. Be intentional about what you're consuming online, and be intentional about who you're spending your time with in real life. I had so many friends that I felt some sense of obligation to, but I did not like who I was around them. I did not like how they made me feel about myself. That matters so much. And when I started to eliminate those people from my hemisphere, just started distancing myself, I really didn't know if I would ever refill that space, because it's not like I had like people on deck that I was like, I'm gonna knock this person off of this level of like interaction, but I've got this person I'm gonna like slot right in. That's not how it was. Like when I started to eliminate people from my life, I didn't have other people on standby. I was just really starting to what felt like isolate myself, but what I was actually doing was I was making room for the right people, and those people came rapidly. And you start to very quickly identify the right people. There's an internal feeling that happens. I wish I could explain it in words that made sense. I don't think that I can. It's just a feeling that you have when you start to interact with someone new that like is on this same vibe. It is like falling in love with a friend. And there is just something so magical about the energy exchange between you and a person that is in your corner, rooting for you, encouraging you, inspiring you, who believes the best in you all the time, and who's going to remind you of that when you don't believe it about yourself. Those are the things that I did to start navigating down the path of confidence. Now, am I the most confident person in the room? Absolutely not. Am I riddled with self-doubt on a daily basis? Absolutely. Ask me about the last time I marketed my book on TikTok. It's been a minute. I'm working on it. Okay, I'm working on that confidence there. There are different avenues that I have a lot of work I still need to do, but I promise you, if you start implementing these things into your life, you will see improvement in how you feel about yourself, how you show up in the space around you, how you stand in the rooms that you're standing in, and just how you feel in general. But then on top of that too, you will start to exude a type of energy that starts to be matched by not just the people in your hemisphere, but by the experiences that you start to have. And that alone just starts to sort of reinforce that experience, and that helps. All of it helps. So I want to tell you right now, like if you are sitting here watching this video feeling completely worthless, like you have no value, like you are dumb, I want to hug you, number one, because you are not dumb. You just have to find out what it is that is important enough to you to figure out. Because I believe everyone has purpose, everyone has a gift, everyone has a talent, everybody has a reason to be here, and you just have to figure out what that is for you. And it can either be really daunting to travel down that path or really exciting. And I hope you'll choose to see it with excitement and just start to give yourself the opportunity to try. With that, I'm gonna go ahead and sign off. Thank you guys so much for being here. I appreciate you. If you like the video, go ahead and give it a thumbs up, subscribe, and hang out with me. I post new videos on Mondays and Thursdays, and I will see you guys again very, very soon. Bye.